Hello and welcome to the Prodigal Life. I'm Deacon Harold and I'm joined by Ellen and Nick. And we are here not only to inspire you, but to help bring the beauty and truth of the Catholic faith in love.
All right, what are we talking about today, Ellen?
We are going to talk about our favorite saints and why they inspire us, and if there's any particular writings or books that have been on, so we can share that information with you, and then we can put links, at the bottom of the podcast. But we're going to talk about our favorite saints, so this will be fun.
I don't believe in them.
Really?
No.
Wow.
So I guess we should talk about who are saints, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about how that happened.
So we did an episode a couple episodes ago on angels.
Yeah.
And I think one starting point is saints are people that have died and gone to heaven and are living in eternal life, and they are also not angels because we are never going to be angels. And when someone you care about passes away, the hope is that they become a saint, not an angel, because that would be very different and not the case. That's not how it works.
Right. So, and as you said, Nick, very well, saints are those who have died or are in heaven. That's a saint.
The church triumphant.
Now, the church triumphant. Now, the church, for some people, make a declaration, an earthly declaration that the person is a saint. Mm-hmm. So like St. Thomas Aquinas, right? St. Thomas of Becket, St. Margaret of York, Mary Magdalene, right? All this. So the church makes a formal declaration. That doesn't mean they're the only people that right. are in heaven, because I mean, all the church is saying that we know for sure, and we declare through the power of the keys that we know that this person is in heaven with God.
Right.
That's all they're saying. But again, not by any means saying they're the only people that are in heaven.
And there's a process, right? They have to be, first they're like a servant of God, then they're like a venerable, and then a blessed,
so there's a
and then
process along the way to make sure that they've lived a holy life, and
there has to be
all
miracles
kinds of records
attributed.
have to be set.
At least two miracles that have been proven, and it takes a really long time to become a saint in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I'm still working on it.
Okay, good.
Yeah. But the goal again is to get to heaven, not to necessarily be formally declared a saint and canonized by the church.
Because we're all called to sainthood, right?
Yeah, everybody's called to sainthood. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
And we see in the New Testament examples where they refer to each other
as saints,
as fellow saints, but that's a different.
It's beautiful.
That's us. Like I refer to it as saints with a lowercase s.
Yeah.
Right? So the patrons community for my other podcast, The Awakened Catholic Show, is called Community of Saints with a lowercase s, because we're still working on it. That's what I say every time.
Okay.
So it's just super important for us to have that goal. Like, I want to be a saint. Like, we were all made. Nobody was ever made not to be a saint.
Right.
That should be our heart's longing. Not to be, like you said, canonized, but just to spend eternity with God and with each other in heaven.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So who are your saints? Who's been significant? I guess we'll bounce around, but who's significant in your life?
The Deacon saints, right?
Okay.
So I remember the ordination, probably the most poignant moment for me was during the Litany of the Saints, right? So you're lying there face down on the marble, and there you hear, Saint Benedict, pray for us. Saint Augustine, pray for us. Then I got to the Deacon saints: Vincent, Ephraim, Lawrence, Francis of Assisi, Stephen. And I just started crying. I mean, it's like, dang. I mean, I'm like, who am I? Just some schmo from Jersey. And here I am about to be ordained to follow in the footsteps of those dudes. I'm like, dang, man.
That's big.
So, and what I do is when the deacon saints, their feast days come around, I treat them as a feast in the Liturgy of the Hours.
Oh, wonderful.
So even though it may be a memorial, I treat it as a feast. When I'm praying up, it's just to honor them, nice, because we share the diaconate together. So I honor them. And Stephen's always a solemnity because Stephen's December 26th, the first martyr, right? So it's during the octave of Easter. So his is always a solemnity. But for the rest of them, unless it falls on a Sunday, of course, I treat them all as feasts.
So St. Lawrence was a deacon.
Yes.
Really? I didn't know that. And he's one of my very favorite saints. So, his courage. I mean, they barbecued him to death.
Yeah.
They put him on a grill. literally a grill, like a barbecue. I talked about this in another episode. And then he looked at the people that were martyring him and said, "I'm done on this side. Turn me over." Who does that? I mean, to be that secure. I mean, that's to me is inspiring. I think saints are kind of meant. I think they should inspire us.
Yeah. St. Francis of Assisi, as a deacon, a lot of people don't realize that. Sometimes they think he's a priest because he's the founder of the the Franciscans. Like, wow,
but he was just a deacon.
He's just a deacon. He was never a priest.
Wow, I never knew that.
Yeah, I mean, just guys like that. The first person to die for the faith, St. Stephen, got out there and proclaimed, and talked about Jesus. They stoned him to death. Yeah. And it's like, wow, the first.
What were his last words? I'm trying to remember. They wrote it down, or somebody's last words were, I can't wait to be with God. You know what I mean? In heaven, like they were joyful, in all the martyrs, and in the martyrs too, because I find great inspiration for the early martyrs, the ones that were going in to be fed to the lions, and they went in singing. I mean, they were like joyful. They were singing hymns. They were going to be attacked by wild beasts, and they were singing and going in knowing that they were going to go see God.
And to think I get frustrated if I stub my toe.
Right. Yeah. Right. So who's important to you?
I love St. Augustine. I love St. Pope John Paul II. I love St. Padre Pio. I love St. Thomas Aquinas. So amongst that grouping, there's a heavy dose of the intellectual, the doctor of the church. I love the conversion story and the witness of St. Augustine and what we see between him and his mom, St. Monica. In St. Monica, we see just this incessant prayer for 30 years, waiting for her son to turn away from his heathen pagan ways, and towards that which is good, true, and beautiful, which is God and a life with him. And then he just contributes so much to the church that to this day we're all still enjoying, and just one of the greatest minds. And I just love some of the more acute parts of his story and how I relate to them. St. Pope John Paul II, just the theology of the body was pivotal in my conversion. And the teachings of it to this day have been such a gift to me and my family, my marriage, and even my ministry. Those are the guys for me, primarily.
Very cool.
Yeah, how about you, Ellen?
Oh, it sounds kind of cliche sometimes, but St. Mary Magdalene, St. Paul, St. John of the Cross, he wrecks me. He wrecks me. He wrecks me. Like even just thinking about him, I get filled with emotion and his writings. There's just no words. And then I just learned about Saint Maria Goretti, that beautiful 11-year-old little girl. And
an incredible story.
I mean, if you want to know about forgiveness, and I highly recommend looking for the Treasures of the Church.org. It tours around. It's free. They do it, and there's over 150 relics, and they bring them to your parish.
That actually was here at this parish.
And they tell you about them, and then the beautiful, beautiful priest tells you all about the story of Maria Goretti and sells her book and the DVD. It is so worth your time to drive to it. No matter where it is, try to find it. That's all the man does. He's based out of Detroit, but the priest is never there. I love St. Paul, St. Marguerite. I love St. Marguerite because she was up there in Canada, and that was just a brutal time for her. St. Bridget of Ireland. I just can't imagine just putting down. She convinced the king, to give her the land. And he just, and he was supposed to give her as much as whatever rolled out. And then it just kept rolling out. And it was like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres. It's an amazing story. If you don't know about St. Bridget of Ireland, it's really, because most people know about St. Bridget of Sweden, and she's great too. But I love St. Bridget of Ireland, and I'm Irish. So I think that's part of it. I'm trying to think. There's different saints that have deep, deep meaning, like St. Anthony. Of Padua. And, I never knew about his bread ministry. Like I didn't know about that, and I just found out about that he used to go and he just deliver bread and to all the poor people. That was like one of his biggest calls, which there it seems that they're all called to service. And then it's like Saint Vincent Ferrer. I mean, do you know the story about the guy that fell off the ladder? He was a mason and he was doing work up high. And St. Vincent Ferrer was down below and he was falling and he yelled for his help. And St. Vincent said, "Wait just a minute." And he literally froze in midair. He said, "I have to get permission from my bishop." So he ran to the bishop. He ran to the bishop to get permission to do a miracle because the bishop thought that he was being a little, what's the word when they're trying to show off? You know what I mean? Because there were so many miracles. He was doing miracles in womb. St. Vincent Ferrer, they have miracles attributed to when his mother was pregnant with him. It is a crazy story, this saint. But literally, so he went and got permission from the bishop, and then he went back and said, "Okay, yeah." And he helped him, and he landed down on the ground. Witnessed by a whole town of people.
That's insane.
Because he was just floating in the air waiting for St. Vincent Ferrer to come back.
That's wild.
I was like, what? So, and then there's, the saints that had the stigmata. The wounds of Christ, like St. Padre Pio, and
Francis of Assisi.
And St. Can you imagine being given those?
Mm-hmm.
Like your faith so deep, your call so great. You know what I mean? The Lord really needing you to suffer that for him and with him. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's just some powerful stuff. I mean, the story with St. Padre Pio and the woman that came to confession with him and wouldn't confess all her sins, and he made her go and come back. And then she came back, and she still wouldn't confess the sin that he knew. He knew that she had committed. And so finally he told her what the sin was, which is that she had had an abortion, that she was too ashamed to confess. But then he told her that she had aborted the Pope.
Wow.
And I was like, I read that story and I was like, oh my gosh, and because he was so prophetic. Like, wasn't he, Deacon? He could read your soul.
Yeah.
Is that what St. Padre Pio was?
And there are rumors that he could levitate and that he could bilocate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't he tell the airplane, the pilot, they kept the World War II planes away from them, and because they saw him, he went up in the cockpit and told him not to do it or whatever.
Well, I
he
know there was a
bilocated.
bishop in prison in another country that got a visit by Padre Pio.
Yeah.
They said, "How'd you get here?"
I bilocated, but it's all right.
Yeah.
Another one that deserves more than an honorable mention, it should have been a part of my list, is Saint Jose Maria Escriva. Oh my gosh, that dude. So something that I've been very passionate about because as a byproduct of my conversion and the life of sin that I turned away from and the life of vice that I turned away from, virtue and manliness have been like true, authentic, godlike manliness. Godly manliness is a better way to say that. That has been such a priority to me, and for myself to live a life of virtue, but then also to help other men pursue that. And Saint Jose Maria Escriva, that is a guy that if you read his writings, like I think what the first book of his that I read is The Way, I think is what it's called, and it is. I started using it as a devotional, a daily devotional, because the chapters are so small, and it's basically comprised of a bunch of one-liners from him. And every single one-liner is a punch to the gut for men.
Wow. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's unreal.
That's a good saint. What
That's
about you,
awesome.
Deacon?
Well, I think
The
a lot of
Deacon
the
saints, but
the Deacon Saint John Paul II, obviously, is my man. I cried like a baby when he died, man, because I felt like I lost a father. Like it's just.
Wow.
Just a real spiritual giant for me, for sure. Absolutely. I think for me also, the Blessed Mother, right? She's obviously, because it's funny, ever since my mom died, I've been drawn closer to the Blessed Virgin Mary. So my Marian devotion has definitely increased.
Nice.
Since my mom died back in 2009. And I look forward to, the Rosary and meditating on the mysteries of Christ through her Sacred Heart, Immaculate Heart. The women martyrs, Felicity, Perpetua, Lucy,
Agnes.
I mean,
Agatha.
gosh, they'd rather die than deny. I mean, that's just.
She was stretched. Agatha was
Yeah, see, these
was
women
put
were
on a
tortured,
machine,
yeah.
a torture machine, where they pulled her body apart. And then Agnes, they cut her. No, it was Agatha too. They cut her breasts off, right?
Yeah, yeah. And when you see sometimes icons of them, you see them like with their body parts that they're tortured
cut
with. Just amazing. Just very inspiring.
Oh,
to
yeah,
me,
because,
you know?
you think what they were willing to die for. You know, they would rather die than deny their Lord. They would rather die than mortally sin against their Lord. That kind of faith, I don't know that it exists as much anymore. I don't, you know what I mean? It's like something to strive for, to have that kind of faith, you know, where you can believe. Saint Jeanne Jugan, she started the Sisters of, in France. Is it Sisters of Charity? I'm trying to remember which one. Her book, she was totally shunned. They quieted her. It's a beautiful story of humility, and it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous story. There's so many saints to the seat, and then there's even some venerables that I find, like Venerable Nelson Baker. You know, Our Lady of outside Buffalo. There's the shrine up there that he had built, and he was. They called him the father of orphans. And because he just built this orphanage, and he just took all of them in and did all he could, you know what I mean, to try and raise them. And he's a venerable. So he's really, really important. There's so many throughout history that you just don't know anything about. Yeah. You know, that we always know about the popular ones, but like Saint Dimpha, you know what I mean, Saint Columba.
Yeah. My wife and I recently got into her. And she's just so cool. Yeah,
Irish saint. Another Irish saint.
A great patron saint for like mental health.
Mental health. She's a mental health. If you're struggling mentally, pray to Saint Dimpha.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's a good thing to know, you know, the different saints, because there are saints for like almost everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, like even Blessed Carlos Acutis, who's going to be, he's going to be, you know, he's supposed to be for the internet. So like if you struggle with internet usage, or you struggle with making bad decisions on the internet, you know, pray for his intercession, because there's miracles attributed to I mean, all of these people are saints because there's miracles.
Yep.
There's miracles attributed to them. So what were your confirmation saints? Do you remember who you took?
Mine was Philip.
Why Philip?
Well, this is actually interesting. I remember because back when I was confirmed with 7th grade, back at Archdiocese of Newark, and the teacher was going through the list of saints, and they were all white. And I'm like, these are great saints, awesome, but I want somebody that kind of looks like me, you know? And so I went to, and so some of the listeners you may have to explain this. It's a library. It's a place with a lot of books. For our younger viewers. And there was a card catalog. You had to
not on the
open
internet.
it. And you couldn't look up online. There's no computers back then. You had to look up a card catalog with a Rolodex and pull out a card and see where to. Yeah. So I went there, and that was actually where I first found. I heard about Augustus Tolton. Because in that section, there was a book. He's not a saint, but there was a book about his life. And so as a 7th grade, that's the first time I ever heard of him. So I remember pages through. I can't use him because he wasn't a saint. Right. But I said, this is interesting. Put it back. And end up picking Philip the deacon. Got in a sense of humor, not knowing that all those years later I would actually become a deacon.
That's wild.
But it was
awesome.
It was Philip
Saint
the deacon.
Philip.
Yeah.
And see, Martin de Porres would have been a good one too.
Yeah, Martin de Porres. Yeah, which was my monastic name, Martin.
Okay.
Monastic, yeah.
Really?
After Martin
so you
de
would have
Porres.
been Brother Martin. Mm-hmm. Deacon Harold would have been Brother Martin. We learned something new today.
Yeah, I was Brother Martin.
You were Brother Martin while you were there.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Mine was St. Francis of Assisi.
Okay.
Yeah. How about you?
Maria. Mother Mary.
Oh,
okay.
Solid
Maria,
choice.
St. Mary. I went with Mary.
Choice.
Yeah, I always
can't go wrong there.
Yeah. So, and when I do my prayers, like the consecration that I read, I now include my confirmation name because you put it before your middle name, is what I was always told. So I always say Ellen Maria, you know what I mean, Holmes, Steeves, you know, the whole long shindiggy. So I added another name to my name.
Yeah.
Isn't that fun?
That's awesome.
Okay, good. So, but you know what? When you were in school or when you were studying or learning, like were there different readings that would, you know what I mean? I know you talk about the Psalms, but what about the different saints? You know, like You talk about Thomas Aquinas and Augustine and all the
Yeah,
other
so it's
ones.
mostly through the in the monastery through matins or what they call office of readings. The second reading is typically done by, most of them are done by Saint Augustine. Also, Pope Saint Gregory the Great. A lot of
he's
though
good.
I think those two have the most of all the readings in there. But there's other fathers of the church there,
And doctors.
and fathers and doctors of the church, and and that was really to me the exposure to the kind of intellectual life of the church as a teenager. And so I still find those readings very rich and very fruitful now. And I think, and also in graduate school, that kind of inspired me to go deeper when, studying spirituality formally, spiritual theology, to kind of go deeper, like into, St. Teresa of Avila or St. John of the Cross, like the deeper intellectual life.
Yeah.
And I just found it to be incredibly stimulating. And who impressed me also was St. Thomas Aquinas. Because he was brilliant, but also he wrote O Salutaris, Tantum Ergo, Panis Angelicus. Like, wow. I mean, so he had a beautiful heart for the faith,
he
not
did.
just the incredible mind.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it really was like the perfect marriage of like all of the ways to express, pursuing truth and living it out that way. It was really beautiful. Yeah.
Well, that's why I love St. Thomas More too.
Oh,
I love St. Thomas More. He was very significant in my faith journey, which I didn't know anything about him. I didn't, you know what I mean? And then Thomas Becket, St. Thomas Becket. And then there's the incorrupt saints, which blow my mind,
Yeah.
like Robert Bellarmine, St. Robert Bellarmine. And what other incorrupt saints are there? I mean, Mother Mariana down in Quito, Ecuador, there's 11 incorrupt nuns in that convent down there with Our Lady of Good Success. Most people don't even know about that.
Two of the kids from Fatima.
St. Bernadette,
St. Bernadette.
she's incorrupt.
Yep.
Now, what you want to
Padre Pio.
explain, Padre Pio, you want to explain incorrupt for the viewers that may not know
Yeah,
about incorruption?
so we talk about saints who are incorrupt. That means that their body has not experienced fully, or sometimes even at all. Because Padre Pio's, most of him is not, is still intact, but there's some parts of him that have decayed, and sometimes you put like a glove or a mask or something over. So basically, their bodies haven't rotted.
In like 800 years or 1,500
and they're still,
years. Or
and
it's insane.
Acutis is another one.
Acutis is not. His, he still has not decayed completely.
Yeah, so
they
it's
just
like,
checked him.
It's like, wait a minute, what's going on? They open the tomb, like, wait a minute, we're supposed to find bones, and the person's body's still intact.
Well, St. Bernadette, she literally was in perfect form when they opened it up. Like, her skin was just like she was a newborn, they say.
That's amazing.
And that's like not explainable by science. I mean, there's no excuse, and there's no
enzyme, there's no special,
Nope, they were buried back in, most of the caskets had even rotted. I think that's what they said, that everything had decayed around, but she was in perfect, was in perfect form. I was like, wow.
And sometimes the church will put those bodies on display, Again, not as some kind of weird, morbid thing like, wow.
No, but underneath an altar, they sometimes have them out. Like, say, Robert Bellarmine, you can go see him.
Yeah, they do have some of them out, like St. Bernadette and Padre Pio, right? In San Giovanni Rotondo, his body's there. Again, as I think the beautiful part is to see, again, it's supposed to bring you closer to God. Like, wow, how could this happen? So, that shows that this is a sign from God. Not only of this person's virtue and their life, but also aside from God, like, look what God can do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because technically, he's still living through them, even though they're not here. You know what I mean? They're no longer like walking around and talking and doing, but they still are. It's really kind of cool. Like Joan of Arc. St. Joan of Arc. That was my daughter's. One of my daughters, she chose St. Joan of Arc, and my other daughter was St. Cecilia. So for music, because she's if you love music, then St. Cecilia is your girl. So
another honorable mention.
Okay.
St. Faustina Kowalska.
Well, can't forget St. Faustina.
Yeah.
Man, was she now talk about her journey. Wow. And then she was deceived by the devil, and he convinced her to burn her diary. And then he interfered again because the first time it was translated, the person that translated actually admitted to changing the words, some of the words, so it wasn't correct. So like whatever God wanted, you know what I mean? Eventually the truth came about because the truth will always prevail. But man, she fought some hard battles.
Yeah, and her writings were banned for a long time.
Because of the woman that did the translation did them improperly, which is what nobody really likes to talk about. It's just more convenient to say, "Oh no, it's not real." So because a lot of people have a trouble with Saint, they don't necessarily believe Saint Faustina, but you have to discern what works for you.
Her diary is really an
powerful.
interesting thing to read and reflect on.
Yeah, Saint Therese of Lisieux as well.
The simple way, right? The little way.
Yeah, just to come out of a 22-year-old, the kind of things. It's like, what?
Yeah.
It's just so beautiful and deep. And
well, a lot of these saints weren't that old.
Yeah.
When they died. I mean, a lot of them were very, very young. Of course, lifespan was shorter then, but some of them knew from a very young age that this was that they were called to it. You know what I mean? And and then others lived like a long time, like Sister Lucia.
Yeah.
She lived a very long life. So from Fatima. So, but no, they're important. I mean, I think for me, as I've learned about them, they've given me hope, you know what I mean? And given me inspiration and kind of, shored up because, if you're going to live your faith and you're going to profess your faith and you're going to try to evangelize and you're going to try to do all that, people aren't going to like you. Like you're going to be hated. And Jesus even says that, and blessed are those that are persecuted in my name. You know what I mean? So I think we can go to them kind of as a, okay, well, they went through this, you know what I mean? So I can go through this, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
It'll be okay.
Well, and I think they serve as models of inspiration for us too. Because on the way here, I saw the Justice League, on the plane. So you got Aquaman and Wonder Woman and Superman. And,
Aquaman's my favorite.
The recent version.
The Snyder Cut? Well, how long was it?
About 2 hours.
Okay, that's probably the shorter.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a better version.
Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Now we'll look for the better version.
But for us, the saints are superheroes.
Like our Wonder Woman.
They're models of inspiration, but they're all because they, the miracles that have been attributed. Because those other things are make believe. What we're talking about here is the really real.
Yeah.
And I think that should be a source of inspiration for us as Catholics. We have people our kids can look up to, not just rock stars and athletes, but real people who had extraordinary lives of holiness and virtue that we can look to and model our lives after to draw inspiration from.
Yep.
And I think that's saints are awesome.
There's an amazing old show that used to be on EWTN, and you should look it up. You can actually get it in their library, and it's called Saints Alive. And it is amazing. They literally have actors that play the saint. They go to the church in Connecticut, Waterbury, Connecticut. Oh, who is the founder of the Knights of Columbus? What's his name?
Father McGivney.
Right, he's up for sainthood as well. They go to his church, his parish church, and then they interview the saint with the parishioners, and they take questions. And the saints act in the authentic. They're dressed authentically. They speak authentically, even with their correct accents.
That's awesome.
It is a phenomenal. You can get it on EWTN. It's called Saints Alive, and I highly recommend it because they do Robert Bellarmine, they do Teresa of Avila. It's some powerful stuff. I wish they were still doing it because they could have just kept going, like with saint after saint after saint after saint. But what you said about children, that's 100% right. Most kids don't know about Saint Agatha. They don't know what she did to protect her virginity. But they should. Like, these are the things I'm talking about. You're talking about how do you evangelize? How do you keep the kids in the church? How do you keep people want to come? Why can't we talk about that during a homily? I mean, if there's something, you're talking about humility, you're talking about chastity, you're talking about, love and all these other things. Why not talk about a saint and what the saint was willing to do for the Catholic faith? And then also, and just include it in your homily, because these kids are going to be like, what? What did he say? What did she, you know what I mean? And even adults are going to be like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know St. Lawrence was barbecued alive. It's kind of cool. It's really, really kind of cool. So So then we have saints. We just thought we'd do a nice story about saints. And like, if you guys have favorite saints, you know, try to investigate them. But if you get that app, there's an app I have Laudete. That's the one I use. And I can click every day. It tells you all the saints, like all of them, some very obscure saints and all about them. And you can learn about them. And then they even give you a link on it where you can learn more about them. But, you know, don't ever stop seeking.
But in case you want to use the Awaken app instead, which I would fully understand where you'd be coming from if you wanted to do that, we also have the Daily Saint reflections on the Awaken app.
I didn't know that, so I'm learning.
Yeah, and you know, I think our prayer library is also more elegant than Laudate's. But, you know, that's
It's
just me.
good. Well, I mean, it's good because you can read it in the English and then also in the Latin. So I think that's wonderful.
Soon Spanish. Some of them already have the Spanish, but soon Spanish
Awesome.
too.
So theawakenapp.io will get you access to that and music and messaging and everything else. And then Deacon's going to tell you how you can support us so we can keep bringing this to you because obviously everything costs money. Thank you.
And if you want to support us financially, just go to theprodigallife.com and you'll see the different levels of patronage and the different levels of angels there. So be an angel and support the Prodigal Life.
Yep. God bless you all. We're praying for you.
Take care. God bless.